going live. Keep talking.
Okay.
Because people are going to start one by one coming in. I see the numbers.
Okay.
And they're going to be joining us. And this is going to be a really exciting show. I wish that this show puts a lot of guys selling bullshit products like muscle spray, sublingual 191 amino acid. It's usually from deer antler.
Yeah, deer velvet antler, whatever.
And they don't understand that it's 6,400 Dalton. It doesn't pass through the buccal. It's not transdermal. It's not you're swallowing it. That's all you're doing. I mean,
right.
It's bullshit.
Right. No, it's not. It's not right. No, it's not going to have the effect that people think it does. Most of the transdermals, like I had a transdermal, I didn't use it. I had two transdermals that just gathered dust. One was, I want to say MK677, which is also ibutamorin. I had a big pump bottle of that, and I could see the molecular weight is too high for it to possibly pass through the dermis. So why bother?
I mean, there's the upper limit of a size of a compound that's going to be delivered through the skin is 500 Dalton.
Right.
Like that's it. If anything bigger than 500 Dalton just stays on the surface of the skin. And the same is true of the buccal, the inside of the mouth. If you're trying to create a sublingual, the same standards apply.
Right. So I had that, and then I had there was this company that definitely thought they were slick. They got into some trouble selling BPC 157, and so then they thought they were going to be slick, and instead of selling it as a compounded medication, they said like, no, this is a cosmetic, and they tried to sell it as a cosmetic. Right. But what they don't understand, right? And you, like, anyone watching can go check this out and just see that I'm right. Go to the drugstore and look for something that's a cosmetic that's also a drug. So what I'm thinking about is something like a dandruff shampoo, right? Like it's a cosmetic, but it's also a drug. Go to the drugstore and look. And on the back, what you'll see is that they have all of the facts as though it were a cosmetic, and they have all of the facts as though it were a drug. It's not a binary choice, right? So it's not that you say, no, it's actually not a drug, it's a cosmetic. What you're saying is, no, it's both, right? It's not binary. You don't get to choose to make your drug now a cosmetic, right? It's both. Now you have to comply with FDA labeling regulations for two things instead of one. You're not being slick, you're being stupid.
Right.
And that's what a lot of these guys do. They think they've figured out some way to game.
I think they're outsmarting. They're going to stay under the radar. That's what they believe.
Right. They think they've figured out some way to game the system that nobody before them has ever figured out.
So for those of you who've never heard of the Superhuman Radio Show, we're going to celebrate our 20th anniversary. November. We're coming into it, the third week of November, 2025. The show started in 2005. In fact, Anthony Roberts was the first guest I had on, where I had him for the entire hour because I used to do 2 interviews per show. But Anthony has
my first book too. By the way, it just happens that it was my first book that I ever had published was 2005.
And the book was called Anabolic Steroids, The Ultimate Research Guide. And it was the book that all the pros used to create their cycles and learn what drugs do what. Anthony was the originator of gathering and publishing information on anabolic steroids. In fact, there was a period of time when you Googled a particular drug, oxandrolone.
Yep.
Anthony's articles came up as the top, the first thing on the list.
Oh yeah, no, there was a time where you had to be on like the third page of Google, right? Like I don't know if you ever heard that joke, right? What's the best place to hide a body? The third page of Google, so nobody makes it there. Like you had to keep looking, right? Because once I wrote the book, websites would hire me and say, well, website X is number one, right, for all Google searches for, let's just say, Dianabol, right? Website X is number one. So I want to hire you to write my profile section, right? So I ended up writing the book. Then I ended up writing profile sections for half a dozen websites. And so it was just down the line, and then all of a sudden places like Wikipedia started gathering steam, or, places like that, government websites. But back in the early days, if you were Googling, let's say 2007, you were Googling Dianabol. For better or for worse, all you were going to find out is what I thought about Dianabol, right?
That's funny. That is funny. And you were fair. I mean, you understood the chemistry surrounding it. So Anthony is a member of Mensa. I remember the first time we talked about that, we had people like pissed off. So
really?
They were saying, oh, prove it. If you're Mensa. Mensa is people that have a certain level of IQ. And
it's the top. It's not that impressive, right? It's the top like 2%.
Right.
Right.
But it is impressive when you think about the number of people that have sub 180 IQs. I mean, sub 80.
Sub 80. I was like, sub 180 is me.
Yeah, exactly. Good. I know. Sub 80 IQs, like you're borderline retarded. Like the army won't take you if you're sub 80.
Sure.
They feel like you're unteachable, and they feel that you could actually harm yourself or someone else.
Well, right. If you look at IQ is dispersed on a bell curve, right? Like just about every attribute, right? So this is actually how I would look at it, right? So instead of being right in the top two, like if I was the top 2% of sprinters, right, there would be no organization for me to join. I would barely make it onto a Division I, right, NCAA team. Those guys aren't the top 2%. Those guys are inside the top 1%.
Right.
Right. So like, it's not that impressive, right? Like I wouldn't make an NCAA team being in the top 2% of my sport. So, it's probably not what people think it is, right. In terms of how impressive or not impressive it is. But also, again, right, when we talk about the top 1%, the top 1% of basketball, right, is the 12th man on an NCAA team, right? And it's also LeBron James. So that top 1% is a huge variance, right? So the top 2% is a huge variance as well. It's an even bigger variance. So, it's not that impressive.
No, it is that it's something. It's a credential, I mean, the other thing is that you are a legitimate journalist. And you used to love to cover the underground labs when they used to get busted. You covered some big stories back in the day of the.
So there was right. So for me, that was never right. That was always about, okay, it sucks. You got busted. Your life is in absolute turmoil right now, right? If you just got busted for selling steroids, you're looking at like maybe 5 years in prison, right? Or 3 years. And now it's going to be like 5 years in prison. It used to be like 2 or 3. Right. But your life is in turmoil. But the whole reason I covered those stories was that you also have a client list. You have a customer list. And some of those customers were buying 10, 20, 30, 50.
I recall, I don't recall, did amps and tabs ever go down?
Yes.
I worried when he went down, I worried that I was on that list because I used to buy all my gear from amps and tabs back in the day. He was great. He was the first one that used a clear stopper so you could see how much oil was left in the vial when you turned it upside down. He was great.
Well,
amps and tabs.
But that's the example, right? That's why I was telling people this is who got busted, was because maybe you're sitting there watching guys get busted, and maybe in your head it'll make you feel better to know, well, yeah, I made some purchases, but I used it all up already. Or I made some purchases and I'm sitting on kind of a lot of stuff. Maybe I should do something about that. Or I bought 3 years worth of cycles because this guy had a good sale. Maybe I shouldn't have it, sitting in my living room for the next couple months. So that part of the journalism is always, giving my readers something to maybe keep them safe, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Porter Cottrell taught me, he said to me, if you're going to buy gear from a UG, he says, buy as much as you can in one time. Don't order some and then 2 months later order some more. Like, don't keep going back to the well. Just order what you need and that's it, then disappear. And it's probably a good way to do it.
It could be, right? The problem is then you run into, right,
reselling.
Busted sitting on 3 years worth of stuff, right? Yeah. That's a quantity that the local prosecutor is going to say, oh my God, this guy has 10, 10 vials of testosterone. That's 10 weeks. That's 100 weeks worth. That's, that's dealing quantity or whatever he's going to say. Through ignorance, usually, right? It's. I don't think a lot of the times it's them out to wreck people's lives. I think it's like sheer ignorance. Like they don't understand that 1,000 tabs of D-ball is not. 1,000 tabs of 5 milligram D-ball is not a dealable quantity. That's a personal quantity. That's personal use amount, right? But 1,000 tabs of ecstasy, that's dealing, right? And they don't understand the difference. They just see tabs, right? Which, like the way the federal guidelines work, they wanted, I think one of the proposals was, they wanted 0.5 ml of oil to be considered a unit in terms of federal sentencing, right? And so just real quick for people who don't know, a tablet can be 1 milligram or 2 milligrams, or it can be 100 milligrams.
Right.
So when you get caught with X amount of tablets, that could be 100 times different quantity depending on what they are.
Right.
Like if you get caught. And you see the same thing with LSD, right? Let's say you take a gallon of orange juice and put 1 drop of LSD in it. You now have, for federal sentencing purposes, a gallon of LSD. Right? So that the carrier is counted as part of the drug.
Right.
So, there's some big problems with, like, especially the criminal justice system, criminal legal system, when it comes to how they quantify what kind of drugs you have and what you're going to do with them, right? So that's something to consider when you're thinking, should I make this huge order from this underground lab and then disappear off the radar? Or should I, buy only as much as I need each time? This way, at any time, if I get busted, I always have the personal use defense, right? considerations.
I need to give a shout out to a couple sponsors we have now. Of course, Legendary Foods and their great protein snacks. More importantly, their new product, which is a high protein macaroni and cheese. It's unbelievable. It's 80% of the calories are from protein. It's fantastic. And then, of course, Vine Medical is a sponsor. And I'll get their websites and put them up on the we'll edit this later. I should have been prepared. I haven't gotten more than 3 hours sleep in the past 5 nights. I'm hanging from a thread.
I've been there. I've been in exactly the same spot. I've been there where I just want to make it past 3 a.m. You know.
I'm depending on Adderall, and it's the D Adderall, the DN. I mean, because it clears the system faster.
Yeah, the amphetamine salt, right?
Yeah. But it helps me to be awake and more alert. That's all it does. But let's get into the actual compounds, because this is where it gets really interesting. We have people on Instagram who spew a lot of bullshit about what they know about anabolic steroids. And most of it is wrong. Like, first of all, the guy that's doing the Instagram ads for ipamorelin, and he's saying it builds muscle and it's, you have more energy. Like, it has none of those fucking attributes. None. Ipamorelin has never been thought to build muscle. I mean, it's a secretagogue. I mean, if you're doing 10 IUs of growth hormone a day, yeah, you're going to see some changes in your body. You're going to be able to train more often, and because you're going to recover faster. But if you listen to the ads on Instagram, there's so many of them. I have to write bullshit on the ads. Everything you've said is bullshit. I just write it. I'm like, I can't believe it. It's like the old days. I'm going to mention a guy's name that you know, Brian. I was going to say Brian. But, these are companies that make bullshit products that sound like steroids, because they're trying to appeal to neophytes who don't know and think, well, this is going to build muscle. Like, anabolic steroids build muscle. Pro bodybuilders use growth hormone just so they can train more frequently. They're not hoping for changes in muscle size. That's what gear is for. Would you agree with that?
Well, you'll get a couple percent, right? The average person really is not going to notice a couple percent change in their physique, like a 1 or 2% change in their physique. The average pro bodybuilder can, assuming the Mr. Olympia isn't chosen 3 weeks in advance by who's buying the most ad space in whatever magazine or forum, right? Assuming that's not what's going on, yeah, the Mr. Olympia can be won or lost by a couple of percent.
Right.
But for the average person, like, do you think the average person can notice a 1 or 2% change in their physique? And again, maybe if we're talking about either some of the very elite of the elite athletes, right? Some of the guys who it's their job to train. If we're talking about some of the elite, operators, right? Guys who are out there in the units doing stuff overseas, where they're, we're investing millions and millions in each soldier or sailor to figure out what works. Yeah, those guys might notice 1% or 2% in terms of the difference in their training. Guys legitimately in contention for a World Cup in any sport, guys legitimately in contention for a medal at the Olympics in any sport, yes, those guys will notice a percent change. Other guys, no, they're not going to notice. It's I don't want to say it's money down the drain because, maybe a pound of muscle is worth $100 to someone. I don't know, but most people aren't going to notice it. That's just a fact. Those are like I call it ipamorelin. I don't know why, but ipamorelin, all of those secretagogues, they, finger quotations, work in that they do raise your growth hormone level, but that's the first order effect. Now you have your second order effect is something that raising your growth hormone level does. So that could be increasing IGF or perhaps improving sleep. And now you have a third order effect. And that third order effect might be that you grow muscle because you rested better, or you grow muscle because your IGF went up. So when you talk about growth hormone secretagogues, you're hoping that you're getting a third order effect, right? You're buying the first order effect and hoping for the third order effect, which just isn't always how it works out. It's rarely how it works out.
Well, I use growth hormone now to recover from the spine surgery. That's really how. And I use 2 to 3 IUs at a time. That's it.
Yep.
I don't want to use any more than that right now.
2 to 3 IUs of growth hormone at a time. Yeah, that's an efficacious dose. That's not,
It's not a timid dose. When there's guys out there that are doing 10 IUs a day, those are much more aggressive.
Well, there's guys out there who think they're doing 10 IUs a day, right? There's guys out there that are doing some amount of IUs a day, but I don't know if it. I have some questions about the legitimacy of some of the brands out there.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's not a very what I would say trustworthy industry in terms of, it's passed through so many hands by the time it gets to the average consumer in America. And unless you're getting it, you can't get it other than through a pharmaceutical company on the legitimate market, right? It's not legal to compound, right?
I know.
So you're really at the mercy of your supplier, and you hope he has a good connection. You hope the connection is trustworthy. I mean, there's a lot of trust you're extending to guys you don't know.
And there was a period of time, we actually did a show about it, when the Olympics came to the United States and the Chinese government said no growth hormone is coming out of China and getting to the U.S. Remember that?
Yeah.
We did a show. And the Chinese government killed the head of their FDA.
Yes. Yeah.
Send a signal to everybody, like, don't ship growth hormone to the United States. And just to show you we're serious, we're going to kill this guy. It was crazy. And growth hormone dried up for like 2 months after.
So that got so here's the interesting thing about that, right? So at the time, the underground growth hormone that was really popular was the Gintropin brand, right? And so that was a guy named Li Jin. Li Jin was educated at UCal Berkeley, right? Li Jin is a guy that, we educated him. He spotted this sort of market that he could enter, and he did. But we are 1,000% responsible for that. And he was indicted, I believe, in Rhode Island, and China said, we're absolutely not ever going to extradite one of our citizens to America. So you guys can pound sand. We had the FDA went over to China. China explicitly said, no, we're not going to do that. And the guy is still in business. And the really interesting thing about that is that people would dump on the underground market and say, oh, the underground market's all bunk, it's all bunk, it's all bunk. But then during Operation Witch Doctor, during the Signature Pharmacy bust, when they started following the money and seeing, well, where is this compounded growth hormone coming from, right? Because this was back in the 2000s. It was coming from Lee Jin. So whether you bought gintropins on the black market or whether you got your compounded GH from a, reputable clinic and a reputable pharmacy, it still was all the same guy. It was one guy supplying all of it. Right. So the argument that, if you get it, from the black market, it's definitely bunk or it's definitely real. It's literally the same growth hormone. Literally, it's the same dude.
So let's talk about anabolics.
Mm-hmm.
I asked you if boldenone was the same thing as equipoise.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I love that question. Stephen the other day actually asked me, and I'll tie these two threads together in a second. Stephen the other day asked me, what is the equivalent injectable amount of Dianabol to the oral amount, right? Where is the, how many mgs of one would equal how many mgs of the other? And so what ties these two questions together is that the parent hormone, okay? So you have testosterone, and what you've done to it is you've added a second double bond between the first and second carbon position. Now, what this does is this increases the stability of the molecule, okay? It leaves the anabolic rating intact, right? So its anabolic rating is still 100, right? The anabolic, quote unquote, rating is how anabolic something is compared to that form of testosterone. It reduces the ability of it to be a substrate for 5-alpha reductase and for aromatase. So what you've done when you've added that double bond is you've taken the parent hormone and you've made it less susceptible to 5-alpha reduction, so conversion to DHT. You've made it less susceptible to aromatization, so conversion to estrogen. You've made it more stable. Okay, you've basically created a molecule that in effect is testosterone with an aromatase inhibitor added into it, right? But the interesting part about that is that you've created boldenone, right? On the one hand, you've created boldenone, and that was patented by SIBA. And you've also created, right, which was patented 20 years later, which blows my mind. 20 years later, they said, let's make this into an oral product, and that's Dianabol. So if you take that boldenone, that parent hormone, and you make it orally ingestible, you've made Dianabol. If you make it injectable, and by which I mean add an ester, you've made equipoise, right? Equipoise, which, people will say, oh, this is a horse steroid. First of all, there are no horse steroids. There's no such thing. There's no horse androgen receptor, right? It's just the androgen receptor. There's no horse steroids. There's no human steroids. There are just steroids. Equipoise was originally released under the brand name Perenibol as a human drug. It was taken off the market in the 70s, and the majority of time that this drug was on the market, it was on the market in 50 mg per ml jugs, right? Those big 50 milliliter jugs of equipoise. So it had been on the market longer, marketed towards veterinary use, than it was on the market marketed towards human use. So it got the reputation of being a horse drug, but it's not a horse drug. It's not at all a horse drug, right? It's originally a human drug. And it just took them a while to make it an oral form. And when they made the oral form, which was Dianabol, they got another patent for it. But in both cases, it was SIBA. It's the same exact drug. Nobody who's used both drugs would ever say that they feel the same, ever. It's this, pretty pretty amazing sort of a comparison when you recognize that it's really one drug, and the only thing that you're changing is whether or not it survives oral ingestion and passes through the liver versus whether you inject it directly into the bloodstream. You have a night and day different drug.
Well, do you have unique metabolites when it's oral?
Yeah, well, you have different metabolites, right? Because it's methylated, you're gonna have the methylated, right, metabolites, and also because you're passing it through the liver, you're exposing it to a bunch of different enzymes that you don't get when you inject it directly into the bloodstream and form that depot that slowly sort of disperses into the blood. You do end up with, I think there's a greater rise in IGF. You do end up with vastly different metabolites and obviously a vastly different metabolism, right? Eating something versus throwing it directly into your blood.
Tell the story about what Boyer Co. used to
Yeah.
use. What was it that you said no one is going to try to get this because it hasn't been made since Boyer Co.
Yeah, when we were discussing, what drugs would be good to discuss, I said I would much rather discuss something like EQ, right? Because it's on every steroid lab's price list. Every steroid lab makes it. Every steroid dealer carries it. There's going to be a bottle of it everywhere that you can buy steroids. I'd much rather discuss that over Nilevar, right? Which is a drug that nobody has used since the 1960s, since Boyer Co. used it.
Right.
I would always rather discuss drugs that can actually be used, right? That people can find somewhere on planet Earth. Right?
Isn't there a favorite drug of Louis Simmons that's also like a lot of people don't use it? You know what I'm talking about?
Not sure. I know Duchesne said that his favorite drug, I believe, was anatrophin, which once again, like, hasn't been sold since the 80s. I think it was only available in 25 milligram ampules. So, like, really, really weird stuff. He said he never felt as good as when he used anatrophin. But again, I like the drugs like Superdrol that people can actually buy. I think for me, I had said this to Matt the other day, and for people who don't know who I'm talking about, Matt Cahill's the guy that dug up the research on Superdrol and did all the intellectual property work on Superdrol and ultimately owned the intellectual property rights to it back in the day. Now I'm not sure who does, but it's not the same product clearly now. What Matt had done this work, and what he found was this drug that essentially was an oral version of Masteron, right? So, I mean, that's what Superdrol is, right? Superdrol is a methylated version of Dristanolone. People call it something like methandriol or something, or methanidrol, I forget. But that's a made-up name that Matt made up, right? The actual chemical name of Superdrol is methyldrastanolone, right? And Masteron is drastanolone propionate. And when you methylate it, right, you get methyldrastanolone. And when you connect two of those molecules together through an azine bond, you get dimethazine, right? So you get dimethazine, and then that bond has to be broken off. People think that because dimethazine is two Superdrol molecules, it's twice as potent, but that's not how it works. The bond has to be broken before it can be used, right? Before it can attach to the androgen receptor. So if you think about 1 milligram of an anabolic steroid, and you think it's two Superdrol molecules attached by the bond takes up space in the milligram.
Right.
right? So it's actually less potent. Dimethazine is less potent despite being two Superdrol molecules attached. It's less potent than just taking Superdrol. You would think, right, it would be double, but it's not. It's quite a bit less.
They never took Superdrol because there was some rumors that it caused heart problems. I don't know if they were true or not.
I don't know why it would cause any more heart problems. I mean, it's a DHT derivative. It's literally, it's oral, like quite literally, it's oral Masteron.
Right.
So, like, you know, if you could think, like, basically, if you look at its anabolic rating, it's stratospheric, right? It's like 400, right? And the androgenic rating is 20, you know? So, but again, we have to realize these are rodent data, right? This is what the drug does in rodents. This is what happens when you give it to a rodent and then you compare the results to giving an equal amount of methyl testosterone to the rodent.
Right.
So that's how that works. It's not a great system for figuring out how a drug is going to act in a human.
Didn't that make a methyl dianolone or a methyl trianolone? Which one was the oral trenbolone? Methyl trianolone?
Right. So the drug that most people would have called the oral trenbolone was methyl trianolone, and what that was, or I want to say it's R1881 is how it's typically referenced in studies, and first of all, you can't even take a milligram of it a day because it's so toxic.
Right, I remember that.
I don't know if you remember the guy's name, but he was from Jamaica, and his screen name was Trend Factor. And he released a methyltranolone product, and within like 2 weeks, people were like saying, my eyeballs are yellow. I can't use this anymore. And they were using literally milligram doses. Like they were using doses so low, they were counting them in the micrograms.
Because the methyl dianolone.
I'm looking at George Clamp. Yeah, Hirschberger asked, they're relevant to humans, right? So he's talking about that, what I'm talking about, the anabolic androgenic ratio. Is it irrelevant to humans? I mean, the answer is that sometimes it is, right? Sometimes it is. Sometimes it nails it, right? Sometimes you nail it perfectly, and sometimes you don't. So Hirschberger assay, like the answer is, yes, sometimes it's irrelevant. Sometimes it's totally accurate.
Yeah. What was that book that you guys used to use when you would find a new steroid?
What was that?
What was that book? There was a book that you guys used.
So the book, the book, and I think I still have a PDF copy of the book. I actually had a printed copy. Aaron printed up a copy of it for me. The book, if anyone wants the reference, the title of the book is Androgens and Anabolic Agents, Chemistry and Pharmacology, or I believe that's the full title, but it's by Jules A. Vida. It's published by Academic Press in 1969. So publishing was finished in 1967, I believe. So essentially, there's no drugs in there that have been discovered since 1967. Nonetheless, there's still like 600 or 700 drugs in there. And when you look at the anabolic androgenic ratio, and this goes back to the Hirschberger assay, if you look at the anabolic rating of a drug and you see that it's 20, you're probably not going to try it, right? Because nobody's looking for a drug that's 1/5 as anabolic as testosterone. Like nobody cares. So that's one answer to the question. Isn't the Hirschberger assay irrelevant to humans? The answer is no, because it's a starting point, right? It's irrelevant in terms of like getting you exactly where you want to go, but it's totally relevant when you say, I'm not going to take the risk to try and import this drug that's literally got an anabolic rating of 0. And if you go through that book, a lot of the drugs in it have anabolic ratings of literally 0, right?
Yeah.
Like there's 5 beta reduced steroids in there, and they're not going to be at all functional. So it's totally relevant for some uses, and for other uses, it's totally irrelevant, you know?
So I do daily shots sub-Q. I've been doing this for at least 7 or 8 years. And first thing in the morning, I take a testosterone, usually about 40 milligrams.
Yep.
And now I've added 10 milligrams of trenbolone acetate to it.
Sure.
And I got to tell you, I feel really good. Just 10 milligrams of Tren-Ace. That's it. Trenbolone works by raising oxytocin level. It's fascinating. I have a study that shows in Vine. It raises oxytocin levels 50-fold in the serum. So my little 10 milligram bump isn't much, but I really believe that Trenbolone, Tren-Ace, could be a great value to the aging male. Because
do you feel that? Like, do you when you take it, do you feel like you say
my libido? I notice my libido goes up.
Sure. Okay.
When
yeah.
I did Tren, my libido went like through the roof.
So I just want to. I have this question that popped up on my screen. Right. Would love to know how to add anabolics to my TRT protocol while still focusing on health. I was told oxandrolone might be good at 20 mgs a day, 2 times a week, cycles per year. So instead of me telling you to use drugs, which I'm definitely not here to do, let's talk about oxandrolone, right? So oxandrolone is Anavar. I believe it is still legal to compound in certain doses.
Oh yeah, I have anti-aging doctors giving their male patients, 5 milligrams of Anavar tablets.
So the FDA, so when you look at the anabolic rating, right? It's stratospheric, right? It's something like an androgenic rating of like a quarter of testosterone and an anabolic rating that goes up to like 600, right? So you're looking at, for a comparator, Tren is 500 and 500, and oxandrolone, I think the upper end of the anabolic rating is 600, 620, 630. So it's considered very anabolic with very little androgenic component.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that it was originally created for women with breast cancer who were going through cachexia.
So oxandrolone was first investigated by Searle in the late 60s. I believe the first published study was 67. Or no, I'm sorry, maybe the patent was 67. The first published study was 69. You're thinking of Masteron, I believe. Masteron, right? Like mastectomy, right?
Yeah,
Masteron,
the DHT derivative.
Yeah. So they're both. What makes oxandrolone or Anavar interesting is that, to my knowledge, it is the only drug that completely removes one of the 19 carbons, right? You have your 19 carbon skeleton, your strand nucleus or your gonane nucleus. It completely removes the second carbon and replaces it with an oxygen. To my knowledge, it's the only drug that has that kind of a replacement rather than, adding a double bond or adding a different group, right? So, for example, Trenbolone has three double bonds added, right, at 4, 9, and 11. This actually removes a carbon and replaces it with an oxygen, and then 17 alpha alkylates it for oral ingestion. As far as 20 milligrams a day, I think I don't want to say anyone should or shouldn't do any dose of anything, but for me, if I were going to use it, I would set a floor of closer to 50. People who use steroids use them to feel like they're using steroids.
Right.
I don't know how many men would feel a 20 milligram dose. I could be wrong, but I would say that a 50 would be a lot more noticeable than 20. 20 might just be so low as to be in that weird, I sort of feel it, but I don't want to believe I threw my money away zone, and it's expensive. It's an expensive drug, right? So I very much.
I once ordered from Amps and Tabs. I ordered Anadrol, and he sent me Anavar. And
wow, that's a deal.
Well, I ended up the Anavars were these little tablets.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought, I said to Aaron, like, should I send them back? He goes, no, take them. So I was taking 10 a day.
So wait, you had ordered Anavar, right? Oxandrolone. And he sent you oxymethylone.
I ordered Anadrol.
Yeah.
And he sent me Anavar.
Okay, so you tried to order oxandrolone. He sent you oxymethylone. Now, the interesting thing here is that oxymethylone is about as far from oxandrolone as possible, other than in the dictionary, right?
Right.
Those are very far apart. We're talking about, I believe that they're both dihydrotestosterone family, except one of them gives you, 20 pounds in a couple of weeks of, kind of bloated, watery,
right.
Terrible headaches, kind of gains. And the other is generally thought to be safe for women and gives you very lean gains.
But sensible. Like it's a sensible drug that you'll put weight on, nothing crazy, but it's not harming yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, no, those two drugs, quite literally, I would put them at the exact opposite ends of the steroid spectrum. Yeah. Like literally. Yeah, that's I would. I'm sorry, a question just came up. With the low dose trend that you're taking,
I'm going to start loading these up. Yeah, go ahead. You read it. Go ahead.
So we have this question: with the low dose trend that you're taking, impact sperm production. And remind me again, you're taking 10 milligrams a day?
10 milligrams a day of Tren Ace.
Tren Ace.
It clears much faster than Enantate.
Yeah, sure. No, the Tren Ace, the acetate ester is interesting because pharmaceutical companies have tried to release the Tren Ace as an oral. And it really doesn't do that much to, and some geniuses tried to, eat the Finaplex pellets, right, which are Tren Ace.
I used to make injectable Tren from those fucking things.
Yeah, everybody did. I heard stories. I'm not going to say that this is a story from, let's just say it's a story from someone at a major powerlifting club maybe in Ohio. Okay. And they said, he was telling me, my friend that trained there, that broke world records there, told me that they would take the pellet and the oil and they'd mash the pellet on a spoon and heat and put the oil on and heat it. And like there were guys that would, like their skill set would include heating it to the point where the oil was just low viscosity enough to draw it up into a syringe.
Oh my God.
Not so hot that it would burn you.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Sick.
And this is we'll just say this is a major powerlifting club. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, in Ohio. Which one could that be?
Well, no, now it could be a few.
Yeah.
But I will say this story is from the 80s. So if you want to narrow it down, the Tren is funny, right? Because the original ester for Tren, right, wasn't acetate and wasn't enanthate, right? Enanthate came out while you and I were kind of in the game, like sort of making our bones, right? The longer ester became available maybe sometime like, in the 2000s. The original ester, and that was produced by Negma, and Negma is a French company. The original version was Trenbolone. I want to say cyclohexahydrocarbonate, and it was 76 milligrams in an ampule, right? And the ampules were 1.5 milliliter ampules.
Right.
So the most awkwardly sized thing you could imagine. And the reason they chose that ester, and it was 76 milligram per amp. The reason they chose all of that weirdness was so you could get exactly 50 milligrams of Tren per injection. So once the ester is cleaved off, all of that, you ended up with 50 milligrams of Tren, which necessitated this bizarrely sized ampule and this bizarre ester.
Were these ampules larger than the Gelnica testosterone amps?
Were they larger than the what?
Remember Gelnica?
Yeah.
Testosterone? Were they bigger than those amps?
No. They were just awkward. It was just an awkward kind of in terms of volume. There was also, I don't know if you remember Sten. Sten was 75 milligrams of testosterone cypionate and 25 of propionate, I think. It was a Mexican product that came in a 2 milliliter ampule. And back in the day, those awkwardly sized ampules were great buys because they were never counterfeited, right?
Right.
So certain things were always real. So, for example, Organon produced Sustanon Redijects, right? So It was like the whole syringe, and the syringe was pre-filled with 1 mil, and that was always 100% real. Because no underground lab, no counterfeiter was going to invest the time to make those things. Right. Now, the unfortunate part was that it was like a 20 gauge needle and nobody could use it. Like you had to shoot it into another needle to use it. What do you think about the question on deck, though? Would the low dose Tren you're taking impact sperm?
I think everything impacts spermatogenesis.
Yeah, I agree.
Testosterone, HRT.
Yeah.
I think it all affects it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
I have my kids, so I'm fine with it not being, thanks. I'm fine with that.
Well, this guy's screen name's Dad Omega, so he might not be done having kids yet. I think
he's a good guy. I communicate with him on Instagram.
Yeah, I think Dad Omega. If you have a screen name that's Dad Omega, you might be gunning for more kids.
Let's see what this is. I hope it came back up.
So the funny thing, too, to circle back on Tren, since the question was on deck, the funny thing, too, is that the actual Tren made by Negma, that went off the market in like the 80s. And you would see people saying, I have a Connect, I have the real stuff, whatever. And it was like 1999, 2009. Like, there is no chance that you have actual Tren from France 20 years after the last batch was made.
Yeah. Let's see. I think we have some more questions. I was trying to get to them, but I'm having trouble. Do you have any favorites when we talk about gear?
So when I was 26 and started getting a little bit of a little bit of notoriety for steroid knowledge, and published. Like, I think I had published, maybe by then, like, I had my third book published. I really had to make a decision on whether I was going to continue to be like the underground lab guy and use everything that came down the pike, or whether I was going to be like go to TRT and just work through a doctor. And I think that's so for me, like, I haven't used anything crazy because I made that decision early in my career to not go to jail for for getting shipments of bizarre steroids sent to my house every third day, because when you have a little notoriety, people do send you free stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And I made that decision, like, don't send me anything. And I know, right? Like, for example, I have friends at the FDA. They can call me and I'm not worried. I'm not trying to feel them out on every conversation. Does he know what I just got in the mail? Right? Like, I'm not, yeah, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. So, like, as far as a lot of the really weird, exotic stuff, I haven't tried it. All of the peptides, because I was very enthusiastic about them when they first came out, all of the peptides and things like that are basically completely illegal for compounding and for research chems. I did use all of those, but those aren't, controlled substances. Nobody's going to be banging your door down because you use GHRP2 or you used MK677 or whatever. So all of that stuff, even the MGF, the IGF-1LR3, all of those I've used. As for some of the, I never used methyltrianolone, even though I was around when it came out. The guy was offering me free bottles. I was like, no, I don't. What am I going to do with this?
Ruin your fucking liver. Sorry.
Right. No. Like, so a lot of the stuff I ended up kind of missing the boat, so anything I had used was in sort of my more freewheeling days before I got published in 2005. And then, by the time you have your third book, you're definitely on a list somewhere, right? If you've gotten your third book published and you write for a magazine, I'm sure your address is known by, multiple federal agencies. So I'm not getting anything shipped to me.
I downloaded the book. I'm trying to figure out how I can get it up on the page. Do you have a copy of the book in the background? The Ultimate Research.
My book?
Yeah.
No. I ended up giving away every copy.
It was the Anabolic Steroids, the Ultimate Research Guide. Is it still for sale? Because it's on.
No. It's been out of print for ages. I wrote that. I went on. I did a book on peptides called Beyond Steroids. I did that for Elite Fitness, the website Elite Fitness. I did a book with Christian Thibodeau called Jekyll to Hyde, physique transformation book, where he did the training and diet, and I did the drug protocol type stuff. And then we released in a series. It ended up being a book-length series on muscle evolution. We ended up releasing Generation S as a series of articles instead of a book, but it's a book length. It's a book length series of articles. So like something like 300 pages worth of articles that we released, in that format.
Part of the problem with the peptides is the companies that are selling them are full of crap. What they're going to do.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are unsatisfied. And I foresaw this. I foresaw this because, peptides were going to cure everything, and they didn't. I think a lot of people got disappointed. Do you remember Nandy, Carl Hoffman?
Yeah. Nandy 12, wasn't it?
Yeah. So Nandy was a regular on the Mind and Muscle boards, and where a lot of us used to collaborate. Um, I was the transdermal guy for people
Yeah.
who want to produce transdermals. There's still a paper out there, home brewing with Flow Gel Ultra, that
Uh-huh.
I still get. I still people reach out to me. Um, but Nandy was the first one that started really writing about peptides, and one day his wife logged into his account and said Carl died. Like he was chasing an illness. We never
Yeah.
found he was trying to find a peptide to help himself, and his wife found him dead in the kitchen. But he really is the first of anybody to be talking about peptides.
Yeah,
First of,
Carl was, and I knew him. He was one of the owners of Cutting Edge Muscle as well. And yeah, he was a good dude. He was an older guy. So I think some of the young guys, especially now, some of the young guys have a little bit of a more of a difficult time relating to him because he was at the time where most of us were like in our late teens on the message boards. This guy was in his 40s and 50s, right? So there was, he very frequently came off a little bit snarky or a little bit we'll say crabby, I guess, if people still use that word, a little bit crabby. But he was a good guy. He was always willing to help. And the main sort of communication breakdown was that he wasn't interested in what would build 30 pounds of muscle, right? Like he just didn't care, right? And I find that's where I am, right? That's like I don't want 30 pounds of muscle, unless I could give it away, unless I could partition it out to people who wanted it. I'm happy where I am. I think by the time you're Carl's age or you're my age, or you have to.
I have to be honest and say I would like to regain the 75 pounds of muscle that I lost through the 2 bouts of sepsis. I mean, I gave up 75 pounds of muscle, and I look at Ronnie Coleman and I see myself. My skin is loose. It's like somebody let the air out of me, and
Really?
I lost a lot of when I was in the hospital. I was there for 3 weeks, and I came out. I went into the hospital 147 pounds. I came out 181.
Say that again?
I went in 147 pounds. I came out 181.
Okay.
Sorry, 204. I went in 247. I came out 181.
Okay. And that's from sepsis. Wow.
My body ate the muscle. In fact, the doctor said to me, it's the reason I lived. And so, I've always been saying muscle is metabolic currency.
Yep.
It's hard to kill strong people. Well, thank God it was true in my case.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Was that if you didn't go in at 247 pounds, you would have been coming out, on a stretcher.
I would have been dead. I really would have. I mean, as it is. So, since I had sepsis twice in a row, January and reinfected in February, then March I had the spine surgery. But because I had sepsis twice in a row, that close together, I have a life expectancy of 4 years.
4. Okay.
And I'm not buying it. You know what I mean? I'm not like, I'm going to die 4 years.
Yeah.
It is it's a wake up call.
Well, it's 4 years, right? It's 4 years. The average person would have 4 years. It's kind of like when you see the statistic when a senior citizen breaks their hip,
Yeah.
right? Something like within a year, half of them are dead.
Yes.
Right. So it's kind of one of those, like it's not exactly the kind of statistic you can hang your hat on. That's a different type of senior citizen.
I'm taking it seriously, and what I mean by that is, I've been working on Gun Leash for 5 years, and I'm coming back to the podcast. I'm like, I'm fighting an uphill battle to try to get people to pay attention to lost and stolen handguns, because those are the ones that fall into criminal hands, but nobody cares. Nobody cares. So I'm like, okay, I'm going back to what I used to do.
Okay. So the show's coming back?
The podcast?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've got a bunch of shows already booked. Yeah, I got a really good show. Neuropathy is rampant, and Dr. Anthony Samsel came on my show. Probably 8 or 10 years ago, and talked about glyphosate exposure leads to a phenomenon called amyloidosis. And we're having more and more people that are dying. Their kidneys are developing amyloid plaque, the brains, obviously, because glyphosate is a synthetic glycine. The body doesn't know how to handle it. And it leads to plaque, amyloid plaque. And so I sent him an email, and he's just finishing a paper. I said, do you think that amyloid plaque is at the root of this epidemic level of neuropathy? He says that he can prove it. And then I just emailed him yesterday, and I said, we have young men that are suffering from ED, like young guys. Like, did you ever think about buying ED medication when you were 20 and 30 years old? Like, no. But these young guys are using. I'm wondering if the amyloid plaque is working on the inside of the penis.
Well, there's this other kind of weird thing, right, that I've been noticing. Like, I remember when I was in college, like, nobody had like a gray beard, right? And like, I'll see like college age men with like gray in their beards. And I'm just standing there thinking, like, this would have been maybe one guy at the whole college might have had that. And now guys in their 20s are going gray like earlier and earlier. There's something going on. And I don't know if that's related, but it's something that I'm noticing that was traditionally only affecting men, let's say from 50 up. And then you started seeing it in guys in their 40s, and then it started being guys in their 30s. And now it's very common to see a guy in his 20s with half gray beard.
I know.
Didn't used to happen. That's not a thing that would happen when I was in college. Nobody showed up to class with a fully gray beard unless it was the teacher. And now it's common. And there's something going on. I know our lifespans, besides the COVID years, which were, outliers for obvious reasons, life expectancies are going up. But what I'm seeing is that sort of the markers of aging are hitting people a lot earlier, right? And whether that's, and I know the studies have been beaten to death, but the studies on grip strength, and grip strength is getting less. And, you can talk about, I think the books from the 70s, right, Our Stolen Future, about environmental estrogen. It's really just, we're living longer, but those markers of aging are hitting people so much earlier. And guys that are in their 20s shouldn't be receiving the same. They shouldn't be thinking I should go on GH as an anti-aging stack. Like, you shouldn't be thinking about that at all. Like, anti-aging shouldn't be the primary concern of a 22-year-old guy. A 22-year-old guy shouldn't be on ED medication and coloring their beard and doing all that stuff.
I know, man. It's amazing. You look at what is popular on Instagram. It's ED medication. It's neuropathy products. I mean, it's just amazing. It's like, holy shit. And something is happening, and it's not. And no, I really think that Dr. Anthony Samsel is going to have a blowout show. I'm just waiting to book him.
No, when you talk neuropathy, you're talking things as well, like, you know, sort of like diabetic peripheral neuropathy, like
there's a 100%, like, out of every neuropathic population, you have a very small percentage of them that are diabetic.
Okay.
Coming from somewhere else, and Samsel thinks it's from glyphosate exposure, and he says he has a paper that he just published. And then I asked him, what about the ED?
Yeah,
If you're getting plaque inside the spongy part of the penis, it's not going to fill up with blood.
Okay. If you remember, I know it's frivolous and stupid, but if you remember, ask him about the premature graying. Obviously, I don't care about it, but it's just something I've noticed.
Yeah.
It's just something I've noticed that guys are going gray that really just, you know, guys 23 shouldn't be fully gray. It just strikes me as odd.
And they shouldn't be shopping Viagra. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I get it if you want to have like a really hard-hitting session with your lover, your wife. I get it. Like, you want to
or you're doing other things. You have other adventures going on that might contribute to some kind of ED, like MDMA, often, you know, things like that.
Dude, I have it. So when I got the sepsis, they catheterized me so many times that they like screwed my prostate up, and I have a mild case nonetheless. I have ED now. Now I think it's getting better. It really is. I think part of it is the stress of not sleeping too.
Now, do you? So there's the daily Cialis, right? That
I take it 5 milligrams.
Okay, and it has a secondary effect, right? It lowers blood pressure slightly. Okay, and now do you notice any ergogenic effect? Because in theory, the nitrous oxide is supposed to right?
I was taking the Dalafil at like 20 milligrams in training, and when I was squatting, I would almost get syncope. My blood pressure would drop so far that
really
I had to grab the uprights. Yeah, my son was one day, and I had to grab the uprights, and I was like, holy shit! Like, I just got like you know, when everything starts getting white.
Yeah.
And I think it made my blood pressure drop dramatically.
Okay. Really? Just from the daily?
And I am starting to notice nocturnal tumescent erections at night while I'm sleeping. So I feel like it's going away. But I had this one nurse. She would come in with the ultrasound and go, "Oh, your bladder's full." And they'd call it straight catheter. She'd just stick a rod up my penis and started going, and I'd pee in a little
bag or whatever.
Yeah, she did it so many times. I think she damaged my prostate.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I don't think there's sort of a free lunch there. I think.
Yeah.
The more times kind of my own theory, the more times you require medical intervention to do something that you're kind of meant to do on your own. So just for example, with what we've been talking about sleep, the more times you require the sleeping pill or the sleeping whatever, or the more times you require that, I think the there's no, it's not a free ride. You know, at the end, you find out exactly what, you know, what the penalty is. You find out at the end.
I mean, I was bleeding after a while. There was the little blood would come out, and then I became very like. I don't think she enjoyed doing it to me, because it's not like I have
sure
a penis that somebody would want to see. But she would come in the room and she go, "Oh, your bladder's getting full." We'd have to, like,
how did she know your bladder was getting full? The ultrasound? Like, how did
she had an ultrasound she would come in with. She'd be like, "Oh, you've got 100 cc's. We got to empty it."
Okay.
And I didn't want to drink water, because they're going to be back in a couple of minutes and do it again. And the opioids not only made me constipated, but they made me not urinate.
Oh, is that right?
Yep.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
Taking them, I got off those fucking things. Oh, excuse me. I got off those things quickly.
Okay, was that tough?
It was, because I was in a lot of pain. And you know, I come to the conclusion that opioids don't remove pain; they make you indifferent to pain.
Yeah, so that was when I was, you know, I had a pair of surgeries in quick succession that had me pretty much bedridden, and so they prescribed the oxys that like supposedly lasted 10 or 12 hours or something. And what I found was not that I was in less pain, but I was in less pain and I was high, so it was more tolerable to just be stuck in bed, right? So it wasn't a matter of being in less pain. It was a matter of, well, if I'm going to be stuck in this bed watching TV, at least I'm high.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I felt about it.
Yeah, that was it though, right? Like, I think when you look at some of the data in terms of just regular NSAIDs versus opioids, I don't think you really see much.
NSAIDs didn't do anything for me. Nothing.
Okay. Really?
Yeah. You know, it is what it is. My body is pretty effed up, and I just want to finish this life with as little pain as possible and be able to do normal things. Walk. Like, I can't even walk. Walking is so hard for me right now. I'm pushing a sled. Mark Bell is so generous. He bought me a sled. But I'm not sleeping, so I don't recover. Like, I was going to take a day off from the sled today because my back is sore. I'm not recovering. And that's why I'm taking three IUs of growth hormone a day. I'm trying to enhance the recovery a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm my friend Joey Lagercio, he's a good friend of mine from New York. We get together. He said I'm a human shipwreck. So,
yeah, no, I get it.
Anyway, I think we're going to call it a day. So
yep.
I'm inviting all the listeners to feel free to send me questions. I'm going to give you the email address. It's carl.lenore, Lanore, at superhumanradio.net. And we'll have Anthony back on, and we'll cover all your questions. And we'll just build on this. We'll build on it. How does that sound, Anthony?
Sounds good.
All right, brother. Thanks for being here today, as usual.
Thanks for having me.
I see everybody soon. We have another show coming this coming week. All right, bye.